This screencast is going to cover the budget section of the online system for Florida 21st Century Community Learning Centers. And you'll access the budget page after you log into the program admin section using the user account that you've been assigned. It will then provide these menu options for you. And you want to go to the dark blue menu, which is 2011-12 RFP RFA. And then in there, you want to click on the budget link. And then once you do, it will take you to this page, and it'll show you a drop-down list of all the grants that have been assigned to your user account. So in this case, we're going to work with test grant. And you click on that, and then it will pull up the budget page for you. In this case, it's blank because we haven't started entering anything yet, and we're going to start from scratch and go through it. Couple quick notes. The budget lines, once you add them, will be broken down into two different categories. The categories are salary or hourly pay, and then everything else, so non-salary accounts. This section right here will give you a synopsis of the totals for everything, and it will calculate it as you go. This icon right here is when you want to export the budget to an Excel spreadsheet that's in the format of the DOE 101S. You can do that, and this is to create a new budget line. These headings up here, these are just to remind you what the specific cells are and what you're supposed to put in the specific cells, and it'll be easier to see once we add a line, so we'll just go ahead and add a new budget line. So click on this right here. First thing that shows up is questioned for what account is this going to be. Now this is not tied to the accounts that you have in your chart of accounts, and so you're free to use your own chart of accounts at all times. You can use your own function codes, your own object codes, account titles, but because that varies from agency to agency, we wanted to have a common categorization for the line items so that we could, at the state level, analyze numbers for project director salary, for the number of hours that teachers are being used. And so in order to do that, there had to be a common language to be able to look everything up. And so we just want you to select one of these categories for the specific line item that you're going to add. In this case, we'll start out with a full-time position, and we'll do the project administrator. So that's the highest level person at the project level, meaning they oversee the whole project and grant. And so a lot of people call it project manager, project director. This is just kind of a catch-all, project administrator. So when you click on this, then it will come up with the question, is this salaried or hourly? And so in this case, we're going to select salaried. That little area will close, and then there will be this box created up here, which is everything that you need to be able to enter in the budget line. And this right here are the blocks where you can put answers in. These will be used or values. These values will be used once you input them to come up with a formula that's required in the budget narrative section. So if you'll see up here, these are the boxes where you can put values in. And right now they have descriptions of what should be inside of the box, and they're gray text rather than black text. That means that this is a box where you can put a value in, and when there is no value, it just has the gray text to remind you of what that value is. You can also look up here, and this will always be here to give you sort of a summary of what the value should be in that particular box. But when you click inside one of these boxes, it will turn blue, and then it will put a red box around it. That lets you know that the cell is live, or that block is live, and then you can put a value in, and when you click outside of the box, then that value will automatically be saved to the database. And so if we decide we don't want to do that or change that, you can click out of it, click in here, so that goes back to reminding you what the value should be in there. But then this block becomes live. So it's the same thing for any of these that have that gray sort of text in here. You know, if you hover over it and it turns blue, that's something that you can put a value in. But you also notice that this doesn't happen when we put it over the amount, and that's because any amount that's in the salary or hourly accounts section, you have to work through the formula for it to calculate the value for you. Once you get down to the non-salary accounts down here, then you will put the value in directly into the amount box. But for this, you got to fill in the formula down here to be able to do that. Okay, so we'll start to put in some values. So for the function code, let's say it's 6300. Let's say it's 110 for the object code. And then this is salaries, project director. And then you notice right here, these are, so we'll click outside of the box, so that means that it's saved. This was what you put originally when it asked you if it was to classify it. If you need to change it, you can change it here, no problem. What you can't do though is change it and have it drop down to a non-salaried account. So once you classify it in the beginning as either a salary hourly account or a non-salary account, that means that that you can't swap between the two, because when you set up the salary lines, there's just a lot that goes into the back end to create all these formulas and everything. So if you decide that this does not belong in the salary hourly section, you just need to delete it and then create another one to go into the other area. Okay, so we'll start in first thing. Start with this number right here, the annual salary, and then work your way across this way. And so for the annual salary, this would be the total amount that that position is paid for the year, not necessarily what is going to end up being the amount in the amount for the budget, because it might not be 1.0 FTE, but in this case, that position pays $50,000 a year. So say same thing as up here. Once you click outside of the box, then it puts in the value. You notice when you click outside of the box, it puts the comma in. If you put a comma in as you're typing the value in, it will pull it out and then just put it into the database as 50,000 with no comma. But then once it's displayed, it'll be displayed with a comma in there. Okay, so number is for the number of positions. In this case, there's one. And the position is project director. So this is the title that is going to show up in the formula. So whatever you call this particular position, just type in the name there. And the next one is the number of pay periods, which financial services wants so that when they're looking over reimbursements, they know how much that employee should have gotten paid for that particular pay period, rather than saying it's $50,000 for the whole year, but then not really knowing how that's spread out over the year. So in this case, we'll say there's 26 pay periods, and you click outside of the box. Now notice that when I clicked outside of this box, it automatically calculated the amount per pay period. So since we already have the $50,000 and then we know it's 26, it just calculates for you 50,000 divided by 26. So we don't need to do anything in there. FTE we'll say is 1. Click outside of the box, and then boom, you got the $50,000 calculated for you. Now if you want to change something, let's say for some reason you want to do it because you know how much they're going to pay per pay period. So say it's $2,100 per pay period. Click outside of the box, and then it recalculates the amount for you based on what you changed in here. If you decide you don't want that, you can change this, or you can just go back and change this to 50,000. Again, click outside the box, and it changes this back to what it should be for the 26 pay periods of 50,000. Okay, so then this area right here is the area to type in the narrative portion of the budget line. And it should be a description of what you are spending the money on. You do not have to repeat the formulas, because the formulas will all come out for you, so you don't have to repeat the stuff for the hourly lines, you don't have to repeat the formula for the full-time positions. This will just be, and I'm not going to type in everything, but it should be description of project director, position, and responsibilities. And so you'll notice here that once I started typing in, this little icon here, the save icon, turned yellow and put save on there. So this text block right here is different than these values up here. These values, once you click outside of the box, it automatically saves it into the database. This does not do that. You have to manually save it, because just generally when there's a lot of text, you may be typing something in and decide, oh, I don't want to have this in there, so you just don't save it, and that would mean that it would revert back to whatever was in there before. You don't have that option up here. Once you click outside of the box, then you're automatically that value was changed. But since there's a lot of reasons why you may not want to save this particular text in here, you have to manually save it. And so you click on the save button, and until you click on that and the save word goes away, it has not been saved, and so it will not be in the database. One thing to note is that when you're pasting stuff in from like a Word document, that depending on the browser you use, and the older browsers tend to be this way, they may not recognize that when you paste something into this box, that that's a change in the value of the box. And so if that's the case, then this won't turn yellow. So if you paste something in here and this doesn't turn yellow, then just do something like add a space into it, and then something that will register that there was a change made in there, and then you can click save. But if that does not turn yellow and you don't have to save it, then whatever you paste in there will not be saved in the database yet. Okay, now if, say, there was a portion of the salary that was administrative costs, then you would just note that in here, put $50,000 times 50% administrative would be $25,000, and then in the admin line, you would manually type in the $25,000. And you would do the same thing if it was an evaluation cost. So we're not going to put that in here for this, but that would be how you would enter the stuff in. So you also notice that now down here there's the 50,000, so this will keep a running tally as you go along. Okay, so let's add another budget line. In this case, let's do a site administration. So let's do like a site coordinator position. So site administration, we're going to have this as hourly. And now this shows up, which is a little bit different when it's an hourly position. This information is needed to break out all the different boxes you'll need to fill in information for in order for the formulas to be able to lay it out the way they want them to in the budget narrative. So there's a couple different options. These columns right up here are all the different options for which terms you're going to be paying teachers or site coordinators for. And that's based on the operations tab. So when you completed the information about your particular sites in the operations tab here, then that information will be pulled and used to put something in here. So for example, these sites don't have before school component, so there is no before school option. So what they stand for is there's after school, before school, weekend holiday, summer, then professional development, because a lot of times that's separate a couple of days of professional development, not paid the same as the after school or before school. So you would use that particular line for that. And then alt hours would be anything that doesn't fit into one of the other categories. So things like planning and parent nights, or maybe you have the site coordinators come in a couple of days before the program starts to be able to get everything organized. So it's sort of a catch-all for something that doesn't fit into the other ones. Now, you have the option of lumping everything together, which is what the alls are for, or separating them out. And you can either merge together the sites or merge together the terms. So you have a couple of different options. So what that means is that if you don't have a difference between site A and site B in this case, and you just want to say, well, I'm going to have 8 teachers across both of sites, and I'm going to use the all section then, because in that case, you would have probably the same pay, the same number of teachers. Everything would be consistent across the 2 sites, so there's no reason to separate it out because you can put it all in one line because everything will average out to be the right thing. But if you have, say, 5 teachers here and 3 teachers here, or if you have different pay rates for the after school and before school, then you're going to need to separate it out by site because you can't have just one formula that will average everything into it. And it will make a little bit more sense when we give an example. So in this case, we're going to separate it out. We're going to have distinct formulas for each of the sites. And then we're also going to have distinct formulas for each of the different terms. So we're going to have after school for both of the sites, weekend holiday for both of the sites. They're going to both run summer programs, and then we're going to do some alternate hours for both of them. And the title for the job is Site Coordinator. And once you put that in there, then click Confirm Hourly Configuration. Same thing will happen, that will close, and then up here, this beautiful box will show up, which is everything you need to complete the budget line. Now, should have mentioned this earlier. Up here, these 3 icons, this N stands for narrative, the narrative portion, which is this section right here. And so when you click on that, it toggles the narrative section open and closed. So when it's red, that means it's open. Then when you toggle it, click the button again, it will close it. That's just to be able to work on the page and not have it be thousands of pages long, because the narrative sections can get pretty long. This icon right here is delete. So if you want to delete it, you click on it. I'm going to say cancel. These right here, when you put the mouse over it, it turns into a hand. This allows you to drag the budget line up and down. So if you decide that it's not in the right order that you put the budget lines in, then you can just manually, using this thing, drag the lines above each other or below each other to change the order of the lines in the budget. Okay, so now this is going to lay out everything that we need, and so we'll start up here and we'll type in the function code. Let's say it's 6300. Say the object code is 110, and this is salaries site coordinator. And so again, you can't type in anything here. This is the category that we picked before. So now we'll go down here. And so since we're probably going to have the different number of hours per day for each of these terms, or a different number of days, that's why we separated these all out. If you just want to have everything be one line where you want to average all these things in, then if you had selected all when you had set up the configuration originally, instead of seeing 4 of these things, all you would have would be this site and then one line, and you put all these things into one line. But we want to get more specific than that, so we separated them out. So let's say that we have, for the number of positions for site coordinator, we'll have 1 across the board for all of them. And let's say that we're paying them $30. And let's say that we have after school, they're going to be 5. Alternate. Now we're going to say that those are planning days for the site coordinator to come maybe a couple of days